Welcome along to our conversation today. I am beyond thrilled to have here with me Dr. Suzanne V. Brown, who in my world I uphold as one of my sheroes and, kind of academic mentors, in the sense that when I was doing my own studies and exploration academically into these non-ordinary experiences, Dr. Suzanne's name came up along with Dr. Rhea White several times in the conversation of exceptional human experiences, which we're going to talk about today. And so it's so exciting to actually have one of the women who helped coin this term, pioneer this research, and bring it to life here with us today. So, Suzanne, welcome.
Thank you so much, Nicole. What a fun time we have when we're just talking, and this is going to be great just to be able to share and talk a little bit more about EHE. Appreciate it. And Rhea is gone, of course, since 2007, but she's with me. I know she is. So.
And I love that decades later, from when you and Ray got together and were doing this research, that decades later, we are now still having this conversation. It's still relevant to be talking about these experiences. So why don't we jump on in, and perhaps you can tell us, Suzanne, what is an EHE? What is that term? And how on earth did you come across it?
Good. Well, an EHE, first, I'll tell you, it's an experience, but it's different than most anomalous experiences. And first, I'll start with anomalous experiences. Anomalous experiences are those experiences that people have. Oh, lots and lots and lots of different kinds. Doesn't make any difference of kind, where you can't explain it and you cannot explain it away. It makes you question. But then beyond that, we have what Ray and I call an exceptional experience. And an exceptional experience does make you want to question, go deeper. And that word that we use when it makes you want to question is called potentiate, similar to the word actualize, a lot of people may know. Okay. But then let's say someday you're working on that one EHE, maybe you've even put it in the background and forgotten about it. All of a sudden it comes up, there's a reminder, or another one hits you over the head, and you can't escape it in your mind or your soul. And you get pushed so far forward, or you get catapulted, you transcend, you transform, you are in a different place, because you now see the world and your place in it as you never have seen it before. Okay. And that can vary. Rhea and I had listed about over 400 different kinds of types of experiences. They could, EEs and EHs. They could be anything. We then classified them along 5 different classes. From something as simple as a déjà vu, déjà vu, synchronicity, meaningful coincidences, all the way up maybe in strength to a near-death experience. So, and then you have out-of-body experiences, you have Kundalini experiences, you have cosmic experiences, mystical, so many, and then of course all the psychical experiences, telepathy, ESP, mind over matter. I think you understand.
Yeah, and I found that truly a groundbreaking piece of the work that you two did, because I couldn't find anyone else that had come up with so many in one place. It was like you'd created this umbrella for all of these types of experiences. And when you'd said over 400, I think even in one publication, it was nearing 500. And I hungrily looked for that list. I was like, where is the list? I need that list of 500 experiences. Where are they? And maybe you'll give it to me one day. I don't know if it exists. It's out there. And that was so useful in knowing, one, that there are so many of them, and then to take the step to classify them. I have found in working with people who are having these experiences or have had many of them, that ability to say there are so many, and here are some of the ways that we can classify them, is deeply validating to experiences. And
Oh,
they
you're
love
so
going through,
right.
they love looking through, and they're like, oh, and I had that and that and that as well. I didn't even think about that as one of my experiences. And it has enabled when I'm working with people to open this deep conversation like you and Rhea did with the story pieces, the EHE autobiographies. It allows people to just pull out these rich pieces of their life story and help to acknowledge and validate things that really at the time maybe were impactful, but life happens. So much busyness happens. And so when they pause and they look back and they listen, they're like, oh, there's been so much.
You got that right. Oh my. Yeah, that's how I had first written Rhea in the old days. I wrote her a letter and I asked her, did she have any papers? Because she's been trained as a librarian, and you should see her house. Oh, I need to send that on to you. It's a picture of Rhea in her home library with the old card catalogs and files and books everywhere in orderly cases. Anyway, so I went ahead and and wrote her in 1988, and she wrote me back, and she sent me a few articles on synchronicity, which is what I was studying at the time, still am. And I thanked her, and we got to talking over email when it finally came around, and it was, and she was still in New York. But when she moved to North Carolina, out by the beach, and my husband and I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina at the time, we were maybe 4 hours drive away. And she mailed me then, or emailed me then, a listing she had, probably about 250, 300 types. And I was like you, I went crazy. Yes, 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 me. Okay. And then I said, and that just kept going. We just kept going. And she said, if you have anything to add, go ahead and add it. Oh, what fun. So we worked on that together. And so we worked on that together. And then from then on, it just is, and then my first time I really met her in person, my husband and I drove to her house in New Bern, and North Carolina. And you will believe this. I got out of the car, in her beautiful driveway house area. And I got out of the car and I went to her. She's standing in her doorway off the patio area. And I started to cry. I was just so happy to meet her finally, yes.
I get it.
Yeah, I know.
Relief. These
Yeah,
people exist. They're real human beings, and
yeah.
it's when you know there's another human being that can understand you on that level. The relief is immense.
And you're
It's
right,
beautiful.
validation. That's exactly how I felt. I felt validated. All those experiences that, depending who you talked with, particularly in those days, they were not only discounted, a lot of times they were scary, because if you said it to the
Yeah.
wrong person, it could, now thank goodness they've got different ways of looking at the experiences that can help people get through them in um, a tender way, I think, more tender way.
It's improving. I mean, in some ways it's quite sad that it was hard back then, and for many people it's still hard now. I mean, sharing some of the experiences that people have these days can get them on, in a psychiatric ward, depending on who
Well,
you speak to and when you speak it and how you speak it. And so
mm-hmm.
discernment is so incredibly important, and there is more compassion, there is a bit more understanding and research to support these experiences now. And yet many people are still having quite negative experiences there, unfortunately. So here we are, we're changing that. We're
I
making
think,
that
well, we
better,
are.
hopefully.
And yes, and I also there's a whole new field out there now called transpersonal psychology,
Yeah.
and people are being trained to kind of help the birthing process. And the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Psychiatrists, has been upgraded now, and so that it now reflects what do they call it? They call it
Spiritual
issues.
problems. Yeah.
Yes, spiritual issues, and
Yeah.
yes, rather than put you back in another category.
Yeah. So you met Rhea. You grew this catalog together. You talked deeply about the the experiences that people have. You started collecting stories, experiences,
Yes, it
stories,
counts.
right?
Yes.
And you together created these stages. You saw through the stories that there were these stages that people went through in their experiences. So, could you walk us through, Suzanne, these 5 stages that you identified? We're going to dive more deeply into each of them
Sure,
because,
I understand.
we have this fabulous
Yeah,
matrix
that I went crazy looking for it, and you know what? Because I have my computer screen facing here, it's not connected now to my printer, so I couldn't print it off.
Okay. Well, we'll dive in, and this
It's
stuff
okay.
anyway. Yeah. So we'll go deep into each, but I guess could we give an overview first of kind of the 5, just so people get a sense of what is this broad picture that we're talking about and the journey of awakening?
Yes, exactly. That's what it is. It's a journey of awakening. And it's and others call it other names, but Ray and I, what we did is we did it. I like to think it's scientifically too, because we took these accounts of real stories of all kinds of EHEs, and we picked out the triggers, concomitants, and after effects. And then we could learn more about these, and that became a very good study. I just got a paper this morning downloaded from Europe, and I'll be writing back to her. It has to do with after effects of spiritual journeys, which is kind of cool. I see they're still going. Anyway, okay. So let's say you get your first thing is the EE. You get the experience. All of a sudden, you are floating on the ceiling, giving birth to your son. Okay, and you're watching everything go on, or you are seeing a plane crash that happens the next day, but you don't know when you just said, what's that? But all of a sudden it's confirmed the next day, precognition, right? Or you get it. So those are experiences, those are EEs. And then the next day, and then the first thing you do with that, I'll just be brief on this right now, is you would check it out. If does anybody know what in the heck just happened to me? What's this about? Or you'd read the literature if you didn't want to talk to anybody, or you might save it for a good friend.
And that's the second stage. The first is
that's the first. No, that's the first stage. That's
okay,
just
yes.
Oh, and these people are all. You're right. Those people are all the authorities.
Right.
You would ask the authorities. The second stage, you're looking. Those don't give you satisfaction, so you move on. You hopefully move on. You potentiate it to go further. So then you would go to a search for reconciliation. You need to reconcile what in the heck just happened. So you may go outside now, normal, average, regular authorities. You may go to a holistic practitioner. You may go to a psychic. You may go to a parapsychologist. You may read, of course, any way you can get an answer. Okay. And hopefully you'll find something there. Okay. And if you can't, then you would need to go further in your search. But a lot of times people are stalled then. They don't know where to go. But if you do find something that triggers you to somehow go and see it from a new light, we call that being used double blind, double, shoot, wrong. you're wearing two sets of glasses.
Mhm.
You're wearing the old world glasses and the new world glasses, and you can't decide. You're stuck in the middle. So we call that between two worlds.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, between two worlds. And that plays, by the way, that's stage 3, and that plays a very important part of our whole process, because regardless of where you are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stages, you can always go forward or backward. It's a reiterative process. It's not straight ahead.
Mhm.
It's not chronological. You can
Mhm.
come back anytime. It's a resting place too. Okay. But the problem with stage 3, see, is once you've seen the new world and you've been out beyond that, even to 4 and 5 or beyond, you go, I can't go back.
Right.
I really don't feel comfortable talking to my old friends. They don't understand me. They think I'm wacky.
Mhm.
Okay. But so that's hard. And then you get let's say one really knocks your socks off, you know, or several at one time. Like, for example, I had an experience with something falling from the sky that was blue and green. And the next day at work, and a business worker with me driving saw the same thing. Well, the next day I was called Blue Star at work. And that same afternoon, going home from work, there was a license plate in front of me, said Blue Star. Pretty good, huh?
Mhm.
And then I started investigating, and then I just went. I found a lot of them kept hitting me. So those synchronicities kept piling up. Okay, so you don't know which way it's coming, and of course you get more. Um, if you have a mystical experiences, it can make you just fly to 4 and 5. You just bypass 1, 2, 3, because you all of a sudden realize things uh, like the veil is porous. There are many worlds. We're all connected.
I
You
think that's
may,
such an important point too, because it's sometimes where people can hit what we now call spiritual emergency
you got
as
that.
well.
Oh,
It's too
yes.
fast. Where are the brakes? There are no brakes, and it's too quick. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. Because it's like all of a sudden everything's there. All of a sudden you're getting it all.
Yeah.
You may get past, present, and future all of a sudden too. And that I've heard a few times. Um, and so, yes. And you may have to get some support there. You may have to get some help. I sure did. I
Yes.
did.
Yes.
And then you go to stage 5. Okay, so that's called in the experiential paradigm. Okay, we call that the experiential paradigm. And then stage 5 is everything is integrated, you feel more comfortable, and you go to stage 5, and then all of a sudden you can breathe a little bit again, and you're going forward. And it's a new way of being in the world. You are being in the world, and you live what you've learned from your EHEs. You become, or you are the person that you feel they're telling you you are, or you're telling you you are.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. And as we were discussing earlier, there's this piece as well about, and then what? Does it end? Does that mean we have walked and we get to the top of the mountain and the journey is over? And because, I think for many people who consciously start out on a spiritual path, the aspirants, there can be this idea of, I will be enlightened one day. That's my goal. And so I'm going to do everything I have to do to get to that point, that X in the map. And once I get to that X in the map, I'll be happy. All of my problems will be solved. I'll be forever enlightened. Everything will be perfect. Or maybe I'll just poof and disintegrate. Who knows, right? But so tell us a bit about the perspective from hanging out in number 5 and beyond. What then happens, because we're still here?
Oh, great, great. Thank you. Yes. Well, life goes on. Okay. Life goes on. That's an important point. The other thing is, though, life goes on, but you still inside in your body, mind, spirit still have those memories. They can't go. You will remember, you will hold. I pull them back whenever I can, particularly my mystical experiences, because then they reassure me when I'm going through rough patches. And, life, life gives me and people rough patches. So, 2005, I lost my husband. It was painful for both of us. And a year and a half, 2 years later, a year and a half later, I lost Fran, my friend, my dearest friend that way. And, and that's hard, so grieving, we can grieve, we can feel that way too. And grieving is a process very similar to what we go through when we go, let's say even EHE, third stage, we can't go back to the old world. So we're almost grieving the old world because it forces us having these experiences, whether we're willing or not, will take us, and sometimes we're not because, we transcend fast all of a sudden. But, so then we can't go back. And when we can't go back and the old friends are harder to explain anything to or socialize with even, then that you will grieve your old life.
Absolutely.
So,
And I think
yeah.
they've found from research in the near-death experience community that the divorce rate is higher amongst
Oh,
experiences. And I've always thought, I'm pretty sure we could expand that out to people who've had spiritually transformative experiences, not just a near-death experience. That
mm,
the irreconcilable differences will either
mhm,
lead to that split in,
mhm,
close partnerships,
mhm.
or they get deepened and they adventure together. But there comes that threshold where something needs to happen, and so often that grief process, comes in the form of relationships, grieving our nearest and dearest and how we have been and were together, and we know that we can no longer be that way together.
Yeah, wow. Well, I like that. That's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. And that is true. I was lucky, when I met Ed, we were married 15 years minus 2 days. And so yes, when I met him, it was later, and uh, we shared a lot of similarities. And the fun thing was, I had a huge bookcase where I lived in Richmond. I lived in Richmond before that, and he lived in Pennsylvania. And a girlfriend said we'd be good for each other, and it turned out good. So anyway, yeah. So he went to my bookcase. And he said, I've got that book, I've got that book, I've got that book. And he goes all the way along, skipping a couple here and there. But it was amazing. Yeah, he collected books too, and so yes,
What
we
a wonderful
shared.
girlfriend matchmaker. Bless her.
Yeah, she is. Oh, she was.
Uh,
Yeah, she was.
Lovely. So,
Yeah.
Suzanne, thank you for outlining those 5 stages of the
Uh-huh.
EHE, the Exceptional Human Experience process. One thing I loved about the work that you did was, and this is the matrix that I'll be referring to, and people will be able to download it and have a look
Beautiful.
and go into it more deeply,
Uh-huh.
is you so wonderfully, and this is the scientific approach, not only did you guys outline the 5 stages, but you then broke it down into some very key things that are important in each of those 5 stages, such
Uh-huh.
as, of course, we have a definition, and you give examples which you've provided, but things like, what is the person searching for at that stage? What are their key questions? And what are the problems that,
Mm,
where are these stuck points where they
mhm.
each of these stages has these patterns within it that they kind of have to overcome before they move into, almost graduate into,
Uh-huh.
another
Yes.
phase.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe we could jump into to some of those. Where would you like to begin? Because it's all
Well,
so
we can
rich.
start with the one I remember real clearly was uh, first stage was first question came right, to me. Of course, I kept that to myself was, am I going crazy?
Yeah.
And a lot of people will say that because they've never heard of this happening to anybody because of course they don't know the literature or they
Yeah.
don't study that. It's out of the blue. Am I going crazy? And that's scary. And then that's why you would go to traditional sources, your priest, whoever, somebody who could maybe tell you and reassure you, validate you that you're okay. And so that one gets me. And then there's a cognitive dissonance there. What is the cognitive? I did cognitive dissonance across too.
That
That I
they temporarily shift focus away from baseline awareness.
Yes. And what that's doing is that's helping, they think it's helping them depotentiate,
Mm.
not pay attention. A lot of times you'll throw these experiences, you just don't want to pay attention. You're fearful of them. So you throw them in the background into a place, unconscious place where you think you don't have to deal with them.
Yeah.
But they're still there. They're still there. And then if you're lucky, and I mean this in a sincere way, later in life, whenever, all of a sudden it'll strike you. Oh, that's what it meant. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's a positive thing. And then or maybe it's added to something else, then it'll move ahead again.
Mm. And it's so interesting. I find that it's often the personal piece of us, the individual, that has the problem with the transpersonal. There's no problem with the all that is, the greater, that it just is. It is, but
Yeah.
it's the personal that's cracking open into this
Yes. Oh,
greater reality that the thing that identifies as I and gives itself a name and an identity, that's the piece, the
yeah,
mechanism that's having all of these issues along the way. So when it is asking,
exactly.
am I going crazy? I mean, truly, because a piece of it is there's this bigger thing has nowhere to fit within what the limited understanding that this little I has of
Yes.
what
Beautiful.
reality
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah, reminds me of Pierce's book, Chilton Pierce's book, The Crack in the Cosmic Gig. Read that many, many years ago, but I remember that. I still have that one. That one is quite outstanding for that. And I also just recently am reading some stuff because I didn't study basic psychology. I studied research psychology. But I'm reading up on self-esteem, and believe it or not, what you're saying makes a lot of sense in that regard of fear, because it is the little ego that is dying. The little ego is frightened, and
Absolutely.
but the problem is if it retreats, it really is going to feel shame. It's really not going to feel fully lived, So yeah.
Yes, yes, and all kinds of problems can come when we deny our experiences, repress, ignore, shut them away. Been there, done that. So yes,
Oh yeah, got that right.
Stuff happens. It's ugly. So one of the challenges you address in that first stage, then in that initiating event and experience, the challenge is to address the EE, to
Uh,
investigate and recognize its uniqueness.
oh yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yes, perfect, perfect, yes. And
Right.
if that doesn't satisfy you, if you can't get your answers, you must move on. You have all kind. There's worlds of people, worlds of books, worlds of help out there to help you reconcile and just to open up to what that EE is. You'll find lots out there, resources
Yeah.
for you to investigate. You probably never knew about. I know I sure didn't. Um, but it starts you going, starts you going.
Yeah. You got
Um,
to ask the right questions.
and that's hard too, because a lot of times some of these experiences were so ineffable. You could not put words to these experiences. It was only until you read maybe somebody else had a similar experience and you went, oh, that's what it is. Or you caught it described in Rhea's book. And by the way, I do have a listing of at least 400 at the back of my third book. So.
Oh, great. Well, I'll be grabbing that.
Yeah, that's a summary. That's a summary book of Rhea and I, of Rhea's and my surgery.
Beautiful. And it's exactly as you say, these experiences often we struggle to put them in words because they're so big and so amazing, and language is just so, it can feel so confining and restraining. And yet when we do come across lists, for example, or categories that give a general description that relates and can describe in some form what we had, there is such a wonderful homecoming that can happen there, that somebody else understands. Not only do they understand, they've given it a name. There's a name for what I went through. Yeah, there's a whole category of them.
Exactly. Oh, so right. So right. Yeah. Yeah. Because, wow. I mean, when my thing were nature experiences. When I lived in, not too far from the Appalachian Mountains, I would go out there every weekend and, just walk the paths, walk the trails alone, and in the woods and along the water's edge up to the waterfall, and then just sit. And those were dreamy places for me. Those are beautiful places for me to go. And a lot of my big experiences happened there in the 80s. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So we have the experiences, we start questioning, it challenges our reality, we start looking, and then we move now into the search for reconciliation, this second stage. And so you identified here that the key questions asked are, how or where do I find truth?
Yes.
Who else? And am I special? So tell us a bit about what's going on there.
Oh, it's not uncommon for me in the beginning, or a lot of people, I understand, to latch on either to the first guru or whatever, the first belief system they run into that's similar to theirs, or they think they're the guru, they feel their ego, and it could be inflation, or it could just be, I know I'm grand. It's like realizing your grandness, and so you believe you're God. I mean, I've heard that before.
Yeah. Yes.
And I can't say no to that either, because it depends on what perspective you're taking.
Yes, absolutely.
It's all good.
And something I find with people at that stage too is there can be such a vulnerability, because there's an openness that's still in process, and there's a quest for seeking answers. And some people can land themselves in very tricky situations, as you say, to find the first guru. And if that so-called guru doesn't have to be someone sitting in a cave meditating, they don't appear that way these days. Gurus come in many forms, or self-proclaimed ones. I know stories of people who have gone to psychics because that seemed like a rational thing to do at that time. And yet and I'm not dissing psychics in any way, but there are certain moments where people can go to others who might not have that person's best interest in mind, nor might they be the safest landing space. And that can also open up another can of problems and worms at that point.
Yes. And when you speak that way too, what I learned, both at that time in my life, doing readings for people, doing divination for people, and also going to diviners of different kinds, was I learned people get too dependent on me for answers. And because of my process, thank God, Goddess, I learned that it was important to have others learn their own way. I'm not their way. And when I figured it out, when I knew that, deep. I think that was a good turning point for me too.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So it sounds like then we move then, this search for reconciliation, this hungry experience, what's going on, who else, and am I special? Um, our crossroads to the next stage here is an awareness that our experiences serve as a catalyst to more with the big M. So now we move between the two worlds. We enter this third stage. And key questions you've identified here are: which world is real?
Mm,
Where do I fit in? And what's the larger meaning? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. This is the one that I was trying to come up with the word double vision.
Yeah.
Double vision is what we have when we're on stage 3. There's an old world and a new world, and we don't know which we belong in, but we can't go backwards. And if we do, we're not comfortable anymore. And we may not be comfortable going forward. We may be fearful going forward.
Mm.
So we feel stuck in that. And a lot of times people can be there, according to, to their stories, they can be there for a long, long time. We could get ourselves all the way up here, and then for whatever reason, we're fearful to go forward. So we just stay. We pretty much feel comfortable with our answers, and we don't feel we need to go forward. And that may be it for the journey for now, Yeah.
I think that's such an important point. And you mentioned, you described it before as a resting place, and but one that we can come back to and revisit. And I love that. I even met a lady at a talk once. She came up afterwards and she said, "Oh, I've been hanging out between worlds for about 40 years now." And I
Okay.
was like, whoa, we need to talk. I need to understand how you do that. How have you tolerated being in
Right.
that place for so long? Because she has clearly cultivated skills by being there whilst developing her gifts. So it makes a lot of sense when you call that a resting place that
Yeah.
people can come back to.
Yes.
And I've literally heard people describe it as, I'm walking in two worlds. I'm
Yes.
between worlds. And I love, sharing with some people who are stuck in that phase, as it's like Harry Potter, the
Uh,
magical world of Hogwarts and the Muggles, and there is a station 9 3/4, and somehow you've discovered how to walk through that wall, and that these two realities are there, and you're right. For some people, that's very comfortable. For some people, it's incredibly painful. They
oh
can't
yeah.
inhabit both, because it really does feel like I have to be one person in this one, I have to be one person in this one, and I don't want to have to do that and split myself anymore. Whereas for other people, no problems. This is
Oh,
who I
that's
am
a very good
during the week, and
synopsis.
on the
Yeah.
weekends I can be that one, or in my private world. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yes. 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 You're right. I mean, we can sit there, we can stay there for a long time, particularly if life happens. Life brings you away from investigation. Life brings you away from any more experiences for a while. Or you put yourself away into staying put because you have other things calling you, such as life, such as making a living, such as, which is pretty much what I had to do after Rhea passed. And my husband was gone, and so I had to make my own living and carry on. So that's why, Nicole, you didn't see me for a while. A lot of people didn't, and I'm now getting all kinds of people who, for whatever reason, what's going on with the universe, I'm getting contacted, which is kind of cool. Yeah,
Beautiful. It's
yeah,
beautiful.
because it
It's
is
so,
important. This is very important. Yes.
yes. And
Wow.
so then this between two worlds, and the crossroads at this point is, you've said, the awareness that the EHEer, so now the exceptional human experiencer, we're potentiating now, that they can actually choose both worlds.
Oh, that's what I wanted to point out. You're right. It's a choice at that place. And so the person who still feels hurt, frustrated because he or she cannot go back or go forward, is desperately looking for some kind of closure or some kind of concrete answer, and it's not there.
Mm.
And that's very hard, very, very difficult for a lot of people. And you point that out. And then, yes, yeah, yes.
Great. So the good news is it doesn't have to be one or the other, but in the choosing
Right, it doesn't, yes.
both, that shifts them now into this fourth stage of being in the experiential paradigm here. So now they know there is an interconnected whole. Um, it's a both and thinking instead of the either or.
Oh, I
And the
love it. Yeah.
key questions here that you identified are, okay, where do I go from here? And this one I love. How do I share it with others? Because, of course, once we've accepted something, there awakens this compulsion now of,
Mhm.
okay, where's my tribe? Where are you guys? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. You do want so badly to find people who have had those same experiences, because you do have those conversations and you can share. And it doesn't make any difference whether it's a building of synchronicities or near death experience. It doesn't make any difference the type of experience. The fact was that you all shared something that moved you. And I think you had mentioned on that grid too, the word the more,
Mhm,
capital M.
mhm.
That is very important it's like the underlying the whole theory of EHE, because within us, there's something that's hidden that is trying to come out, and it's our more, MORE. And Rhea writes a great paper on it, and it was she published that, and then I speak about it in several places as well. But basically, the more is a word that was coined by William James, the founder of American psychology. And between him and Rhea, they both get it very clear in their writings about how our goal with the more, I don't like to use that word, but anyway, is to be in, to touch. We are in the sacred. And we've discovered the sacredness of who we are. And, and that's really where I believe and Rhea too, that EHEs are leading us as we become sacred beings. But I always remind people, and I know I had to do this, you have to keep your feet on the ground, even though your head is up here somewhere flying off, because these things can knock your head off, Yeah. But yes, it's an amazing thing when you get that, I call them mystical, but it is, you are in touch with the universe, and you don't want to ever, you can't let those go, no matter how mundane the life gets.
I find the more that one moves into those, the stage 5, stage 4, stage 5 pieces, the more it's actually important to be very physically grounded on planet Earth and have very ordinary, practical, day-to-day things to do and be, because this is where the integration of the both worlds,
Yes,
that's where the magic really happens, because we
yes.
still have to function.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And for me and for many people, what we learn is our job is we give back. It's important. I'm on stage 5 now. And stage 5 is a new way of being in the world. And so how do you take all of this that you've learned through life and EHEs and pull it together? And I'm almost 70 now. And you pull it together and you say, you declare to God, to the universe, to everybody, to yourself, of course, this is who I am as far as I know right now. And this is what I'm here to do. For me, it's to give back, because I've had the help of so many people, and universe certainly could have let me go a lot earlier than this. And I keeps supporting me, keeps helping me.
Beautiful.
Amazing
And
stuff. How it is amazing how things happen
truly,
just in time.
truly. And the questions you identified at that stage 5 of the new way of being in the world are things like, how can I best serve? How can I best align to the universe? I love that. So, I mean, at this point, the experiencer is very clear in who I am, what I'm here to do, and it really is a matter of actioning now.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. Action. Yes. Yes.
lovely. I find it, for me, this likens a lot to the hero's journey as well, and the hero, the shero's journey, however one wants to call that. And I find, yes, we can get caught in the content and the experience, but as you said before, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, the what happened, where, and how, it's interesting, and there are pieces of it that are going to be important to one's unique story. But ultimately, once one gets towards the end, it's what was the wisdom that was gained, and that last piece of the hero's quest where, the hero now comes back from the non-ordinary into the ordinary. I find that very unsatisfying in that archetypal story, because that's actually where it all begins. I find in working with people who've had these experiences, it's like, so now I'm here, I went there, I did that, and this stage 5, there's so much richness in working with people in a kind of aligned manner. How do you align to who you are and what the universe wants of you, and what you feel to be coming through you? There's so much in it. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And a lot of times for me, I've got to do some touchstones. I've got not actual, but yeah, I've got to feel. I've got to tune off my spinning brain and just say, okay, what's going on? Where do I go from here? I mean, that's important for me to do that. I think for most people to be able to just listen a little bit. Sometimes you'll get the wisdom that way. I've sure had it in my life with, a lot of problems and needing answers. And so I just listen. It's amazing. I can hear some things come to me. Not voices so much, it's my voice, but it's giving me direction. Oh, and one I love that you always hear all the time, but when you keep hitting a wall, hitting a wall, hitting a wall, and you can't go around the wall, through it, over it, or whatever. Okay, so next time, turn left or turn right. Do something different. Don't keep doing, breaking your head up every time. And that has helped me a lot too. So, but yeah, so then where are we going, right? You asked me that a while back.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we going? So
what
here we are.
After 5?
Yeah, well, we're up to 5 and we're doing our thing and we're working along, and it never stops, right? Sometimes we can get hit again with another one, another big EHE, another premonition, there's a lot going on in the universe right now, right? You can feel it, certainly in our world, but also I think all throughout. And there's some very exciting things going on, even in quantum physics, that are starting to help us better understand time. And I just read an article recently that, we've heard that time can go forward and backward, but they've actually taken this week, I think it was, they've published a study that shows subjects who were sleeping and they were awakened at a REM several times during the night. And then they would say, they had to write whatever it was. And turns out it was like 25% was past memories, 23% was present stuff going on, but 19% of those dreams or dream states were future events. Isn't that interesting? We don't catch that when we wake up for some reason. Most of us don't, but yeah, interesting, huh?
Very.
Yeah, they were colored a little different. They weren't, perfect. Nothing is that way, but but enough for them to recognize these were future, predictable in the future, backwards. So,
Suzanne,
so who knows?
I want to thank you for
Oh
the work
yeah.
that you and Rhea brought into the world, for the love and the dedication you poured in, particularly at a time where not many people were really receiving or understanding the work deeply. I'm glad that things are shifting in the global understanding now, in our collective understanding and openness to these experiences. And I want to celebrate your kind of coming back,
Oh, thank you.
into the conversation and into the sphere at what is a timeliness on this planet. As you say, this is quite a wild time, and I guess I'd love to finish off with, why do you think this conversation is still here and is still
Mm.
happening at this point? Why are you back with us, still talking about this?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, what I feel right now is more and more and more people are finally getting we call it awakening. There's more people awakening to the something more, to and something sacred. And when and that may be leading us, if you know, I have heard some schools of thought with different names, but they still can say, and I'm beginning to see this, that we are evolution is pushing humankind toward maybe new way of being with genetic changes, so that now we may have a new name called sacred, uh, what is it called? Homo sacred, whatever. Anyway, I've read that, and one of our great contributors to EHEN when it was first put together, um, Dick Richardson, he had also called it, he had his own name, esophagus, like the learned man or the learned human. And so, yes, it's worth just brainstorming, thinking aloud as to where, if more and more of us are awakening to something more now, then, and we're more connected. That's the beauty of it. We can see, in the old days, somebody could have a bright idea or be transcending and want to share, but there was only their little area, or to share it with. Great distances couldn't be covered. Today they are, and so more and more people can learn from each other and move on and go forward. So I think it's time we
It's
are
time.
evolving.
Isn't that exciting?
Well, yes, and of course fearful, but not really. Um,
Mm,
it will be what it is. I truly trust.
beautiful. And Suzanne, for those who have listened through and are relating completely with this conversation, are there any final words you would like to leave them with?
Oh, oh gosh. Um, well, I'm here. and and that's really important too, because I would, I'd love to. I don't know what I can do in terms of publishing, but I still have, if anybody's interested, and I still have, I did move all of Rhea's journals with me, all the EHE journals. I think I'm the only one, maybe one group has them still, but I do have all her journals, which of course have massive indexes. So, as she did so well. And so I could do that kind of research, and I also am always available to people for one-on-one Zoom, yeah, or
Beautiful.
talks.
And of course, we'll put links to your books as well,
Oh,
so people can
okay.
dive on in. And amazing, Suzanne, exciting times. I'm just so thrilled and grateful this connection can happen. Your depth of sharing and ability to describe the journey for many people, because you've been there, you've done that a long time ago, put it into words, and it's all very clear.
And you've done
You
a
know,
beautiful matrix. You did that,
thank you.
which knocked my socks off.
Thank you. So, yes, may our conversations continue, and
Please.
thank you.
Thank you, dear. Thank you.